So this is the Pixel 7 Pro versus the OnePlus 11. The OnePlus came out around mid-February, so it's the newer one, versus the Pixel 7 Pro came out last year in 2022 or around mid-October. So it's a little bit older, around 6 months, 5 months older now, but still a very competitive phone. And as far as the pricing for these, the OnePlus 11 starts out at $699 for the base model, and then you add an extra $100 to get a little bit more storage, a little bit more RAM. That's actually the model that I personally have. And then the Pixel 7 Pro started out at $899 for the base model, and then you add an extra $100 for more storage. But recently I've noticed that it's been on sale for $150 less. So it really starts out around $750 here in the US. So that's a pretty good deal. And then you add an extra $100 to get more storage. Personally, I have the second tier, so I have 256 gigabytes of storage, but you are able to get to a max of 512 versus the OnePlus 11 caps out at 256 gigabytes of storage, but you are getting that extra 4 gigs of RAM, or I think actually 8 gigabytes of RAM, so you're getting a total of 16 gigs of RAM on the second tier model versus 12 gigabytes of RAM across the board on the Pixel 7 Pro. But that's just kind of specs and pricing for you, so let's talk about how they actually compare. As far as the build and design, obviously you can tell these two phones are glass slab phones, but they've got a quite unique different design compared to each other. On the Pixel 7 Pro, it's a glossy monster, so glossy finish to the back glass and a glossy finish to the aluminum frame. The glass being used is Victus on both the back and on the front, versus the OnePlus 11 that has a matte finish on the back, but that's only in the Titan Black colorway. And then you have a glossy aluminum frame. And then as far as the materials, the OnePlus 11 does use Gorilla Glass 5 on the back and then Victus on the front, and then the aluminum frame. And I think as far as like durability wise, I think Gorilla Glass 5 is still strong enough for most people, and I still would always recommend some kind of case or something to help protect it. But scratch wise, I think, and drop shatterness wise, Victus might be a little bit stronger. But as far as the design, the Pixel 7 Pro has that camera array, the visor that just stretches across the whole back of the device, and that means that when you lay it on a table, it's not going to rock. Versus the OnePlus 11, you got this circular camera bump, which is more towards the left side of the device, and so that means that when you put it down on a flat surface, it is going to rock a good bit. But I think both of them look pretty clean overall, especially since both of them have that frame that just blends right into the camera bump. Although I will say that the OnePlus is a little bit cheeky with it because it starts out as a flat piece of frame or aluminum frame, and then it starts to build itself into this giant circular piece of glass that houses all those sensors. So I think it looks a little bit cleaner on the Pixel 7 Pro, but it's honestly up to you to decide which one you think looks nicer. Both of them overall in the hand though do feel pretty comfortable and pretty soft feeling, just because they're rounded all around and have like a curved feeling overall as well. But the Pixel 7 Pro I think is a little bit heavier just by a tad bit, but they're both tall devices, and the Pixel 7 Pro is also just a little bit wider in the screen versus the OnePlus 11, which affects the aspect ratio in the display. That just means that it's easier in the hand to reach across the OnePlus 11 versus the Pixel 7 Pro. It's just maybe a little bit tougher to reach across the whole screen. Of course, it depends on your hand size. For me, I have pretty big hands, so I can just about reach across in the Pixel 7 Pro. On the OnePlus 11, it's literally no problem. But besides that, I think both of them are pretty comfortable in the hand, but I still would recommend a case because they are very, very slippery. So for me personally, I use a D-Brand grip case on the Pixel 7 Pro. Adds a lot of good amount of grip. Makes the phone a little bit thicker and a little bit heavier, but I kind of like the way it feels on the Pixel 7 Pro. On the OnePlus 11, I would have been using the grip case as well, but they don't have it available. So I've been using the Sandstone case from OnePlus, and it's overall a thin and pretty decent case. It's not going to give you a huge amount of protection or a huge amount of grip, but I do prefer the feeling of that case over the feeling of the matte glass of the OnePlus 11, because I don't know, it just feels weird in my hand. It's slippery, it's not super soft, it's got like a weird texture to it. I don't know, I just not a fan of it. So I definitely prefer the feeling of the case over the actual matte feeling of the phone. But besides that, as far as colors, in case you're curious, the OnePlus 11 does come in just Titan Black, which is this colorway, which is a matte finish, or the Eternal Green, which is a glossy finish. So I'm curious to know how that feels and how that looks. Versus the Pixel 7 Pro does come in 3 different colorways. There's the Hazel, which is the green that you see here that has that gold-like accent frame, which I think looks gorgeous. There's also a Snow, which is like a white, and then Obsidian, which is like a black. So those are their different options. So 3 options versus 2 options, kind of up to you to decide. There's not a ton of options there, and they're very similar, like green and green, and then black and black, and then bonus of a white. But that's pretty much as far as build and design. So as far as hardware, buttons, and ports here, you do have USB-C at the bottom for both of them, and then the power button and the volume rocker are differently positioned on both of these devices. So on the Pixel 7 Pro, you do have both of those buttons on one side. So the bonus of that, at least for me that I'm finding, or I've noticed or experienced and whatnot, is that when you're propping up your device, you have that one side that's completely flat, so you don't have to worry about accidentally triggering one of those buttons versus on the OnePlus 11. They're on different sides, so you might accidentally trigger one when you're propping your device up, but it's pretty rare, but it may occasionally happen. But one thing I do like is both of them are pretty ergonomically placed, so it's pretty easy to reach them, at least with my hands at least. Pretty comfortable to reach both the power button and the volume rocker on both devices. And one small thing that I find annoying sometimes is because I'm used to other devices, or I'm constantly switching and testing other devices, on the Pixel 7 Pro, the volume rocker is below the power button, and sometimes I'm accidentally triggering the volume rocker instead of the power button, or vice versa. So that's a small nitpick there. But besides that, both of them also have dual firing speakers, and both of them sound pretty good overall. You're only going to really notice a difference when you're comparing them side by side. And I would say that the Pixel 7 Pro just lacks maybe a little bit of bass. I think that OnePlus 11 has like a little too much. That one actually, I wouldn't say too much bass, but more bass than the Pixel 7 Pro. It ends up sounding just maybe a little bit better. But I honestly think that both of them sound more than fine for listening to music or just watching content. And both of them also have a physical SIM card slot, but the OnePlus 11 does actually have a dual SIM card slot, so you can actually insert 2 physical SIM card slots, versus the Pixel 7 Pro is just a single SIM card slot. And then the OnePlus 11 does have an additional alert slider physical toggle, which basically allows you to switch from mute, vibrate, and sound, or ring, I think is what it's called. So you can switch your sound mode, which is pretty convenient for if in case you're in a situation where you have to quickly mute your device or turn your device back on, and you don't have to actually go into the device in the software. You just physically toggle it. Versus on the Pixel 7 Pro, I do find it a little bit odd the way you have to do it. You have to unlock the device, or actually literally from the home screen, or lock screen I should say. You just have to trigger the volume, and then you can toggle which sound mode you want. I'm used to it being in the quick toggles. I can't find a quick toggle for it, so I find that kind of odd. I never really noticed it until recently, and I guess just always kept my phone on mute, so I never really was concerned about it until I realized that it's only available when you're using that volume rocker, which is weird. And as far as those haptics, both of them have pretty decent haptics in my opinion. The OnePlus 11 does feel a little bit more denser and stronger compared to the Pixel 7 Pro, but the Pixel 7 Pro has this like subtleness to it that I also really like. So it kind of really depends on what your personal preference is, but if you're comparing them side to side, you'll notice a difference and you might be able to choose which one you prefer. I just think the OnePlus 11 does feel a little bit more stronger and more denser versus the Pixel 7 Pro, a little bit more subtle, but both of them I think feel pretty good. And both of them have an IP rating where the Pixel 7 Pro is IP68 water and dust resistant rated versus the OnePlus 11's only IP64. So basically that means that the Pixel 7 Pro has been tested and is guaranteed to survive being submerged in water, versus the Pixel 7 Pro wasn't tested for that, but it also doesn't mean that it's not capable of surviving submergence. I've seen a couple of videos. I've also heard and read that OnePlus just didn't want to pay for that rating, but they don't guarantee it. They didn't want to pay for it. So you can potentially submerge this if you want to. I personally just splash them or use them in the shower sometimes, and both of them have been surviving just fine. As far as the displays, the Pixel 7 Pro does have a 6.7-inch 120Hz 1440p AMOLED variable refresh rate display with I think 1500 peaks of brightness, versus the OnePlus 11. It does have also a 6.7-inch 120Hz 1440p AMOLED, I think a peak of 1300 nits of brightness. Basically, both displays are fantastic for pretty much anyone and everyone. The only major difference that I would really want to point out is that the Pixel 7 Pro does have a slightly more 16:9 aspect ratio, or closer to the aspect ratio. I guess more of a wider aspect ratio compared to the OnePlus 11 that's a little bit more taller, or feels a little bit taller and thinner compared to the Pixel 7 Pro. Where you will notice that is, I guess, when you're watching content, just because, so such as videos, depending on the aspect ratio of the video, it may fit, or you may take advantage of more screen on the Pixel 7 Pro. So for example, YouTube, a lot of videos are 16:9. So that basically means that you'll get a slightly bigger 16:9 box on the Pixel 7 Pro with slightly smaller black bars on each side. But if you have a video that's a slightly wider aspect ratio, I think it might fit better on the OnePlus 11. But that's just for videos. And as far as the quality and look of the videos, everything looks really nice. You can tweak your settings a little bit to better fit your likeness or whatever you prefer. On the OnePlus 11, you do have the ability to turn on a natural tone mode, which basically will change the temperature of your display based on the ambient lighting in your environment. And you also have the eye comfort shield on both of them. And then you can also switch between vivid mode and natural mode, and I think a pro mode on the OnePlus 11. And then the Pixel 7 Pro has a one that just changes, like a variable one, and then also a natural one, which will basically keep it the colors as natural as possible. I would say the OnePlus 11 maybe just looks a little bit more vivid when you're trying to compare them, but besides that, I think both of them look really good. Brightness wise, I do think the Pixel 7 Pro does look and feel a little bit more brighter. Even when you're outside, I think it looks just a little bit brighter, but honestly, not a huge difference. The OnePlus 11 gets plenty bright enough for pretty much anyone. But if you do struggle with seeing, I guess, your display, maybe you want to get the Pixel 7 Pro because it does have a brighter display. Both of them also have a curved display though, so if you're not a fan of those, they both have them. I would say that with external touches, sometimes it happens on both of them, so with the case it does help a little bit, but because they're curved displays and if you use a case, sometimes junk will start to build up between the edge display and also the case, so just keep that in mind as well. And bezel wise, both of them seem to have pretty slim bezels and minor intrusions with the camera. It's just a small little cutout, and the OnePlus 11 does have it in the top left corner, so kind of doesn't really matter. Both of them are small, but I would say I prefer the symmetrical look on the Pixel 7 Pro. As far as biometrics, both of them have the same login options and also the same biometrics. So they both have a pattern, a password, or a PIN, or nothing at all. And then you also have facial recognition for your biometric, and then also an under display fingerprint sensor using an optical one. As far as the performance for those two things, the facial recognition, both of them tend to do about the same job. So sometimes it'll struggle if your phone is too far away or if there's not enough light in the room. There's an option on the OnePlus 11 to lighten up the display so that you have some light face hitting you. But personally, I keep that off just because I might accidentally blind myself like in the middle of the night or something like that. Both of them actually have the option to require your eyes to be closed. But I noticed that the Pixel 7 Pro, sometimes with my glasses on, I guess maybe the reflection is playing with it or something's going on. It'll trick it or actually just break it essentially into thinking that my eyes are open, and it'll unlock the phone. Versus the OnePlus 11 with my glasses on didn't have an issue with that feature. So if my eyes were closed, it wouldn't unlock until my eyes were open. If I took my glasses off, then the Pixel 7 Pro functions just fine. So maybe that's a feature that's not even worth turning on if you have glasses. But besides that, both of them get into the device pretty quickly with facial recognition. The OnePlus 11 also does have a slightly different animation when you're turning the display on. The Pixel 7 Pro's display turns on pretty quickly, so you do see your lock screen just very briefly for like a second or two when you're turning it on, just because it turns on the display and then it does the recognition and then you're in. So like you see it for like a second. Versus the OnePlus 11, the animation for turning on the display is a little bit slower. So while the animation is happening, it's also doing the whole facial recognition. So it looks like you're not even seeing your lock screen at all. You're just jumping straight into the home screen, which it seems pretty fast, but when you compare them side by side, it's about the same speed, honestly. Now, as far as the under display fingerprint sensor, both of them, again, perform very similar, where if you place your finger, at the right position, also hold it for long enough, you're gonna get in pretty quickly. Now, if you press it just lightly or tap it or something like that, both of them tend to struggle. I found that the Pixel 7 Pro maybe struggles just a little bit less, but honestly, they perform pretty similar and get you into the device really quickly. Now, as far as the performance, the specs on the Pixel 7 Pro does have the Google Tensor Chip Gen 2 with 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is LPDDR5. And then you get anywhere from 120 gigabytes of storage up to 512, which is UFS 3.1. Versus the OnePlus 11, it does have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 with either 8 or 16 gigabytes of RAM, which is the LPDDR5. And then you also get either 120 gigabytes of storage, which is UFS 3.1, or 256 gigabytes of storage, which is UFS 4.0. So with that out of the way, how do they perform? Overall, the OnePlus 11 definitely performs just a little bit better and also is way more efficient and better with the heat management, or not as a demanding, I think, CPU, or just a more efficient CPU, so it's not taking up too much power, not creating too much heat, versus the Google Tensor Chip G2 is very power hungry and very hot CPU. So overall, with basic usage, everyone should be fine. I will say you might encounter the Pixel 7 Pro will get a little bit warm even with some basic usage. So if you're browsing for a long time, social media or something like that, the Pixel 7 Pro may get a little bit warm, because sometimes I'll just be checking my phone in the morning, checking banks and stuff like that, watching a little some YouTube, and the phone just it gets warm. I wouldn't say it gets hot, but the Pixel 7 Pro definitely does feel a little bit warm. Versus the OnePlus 11, no, not much of a issue when it comes to just basic usage. You should be just fine. If you do something a little bit more intensive, then I will definitely say that Pixel 7 Pro gets warmer, quite a bit hot, I would say, but not enough to like feel uncomfortable, but enough to definitely like notice it, like, that's pretty warm. Versus the OnePlus 11, it gets warm. It doesn't really get hot or too warm to the touch or anything like that. It just gets warm. I mean, most CPUs get warm, that's expected, but I would say it's pretty normal feeling. So overall, I would say that it definitely feels a bit more secure and more comfortable feeling when you're using the OnePlus 11 for extended usage, or just using it for heavier tasks such as gaming, multitasking, maybe using your camera for a long time. I would feel more comfortable with the OnePlus 11. And as far as how that impacts performance, I did notice some lags, some hiccups on delays on the Pixel 7 Pro. Once you felt the phone getting really warm, sometimes you will notice some stutters there. Versus the OnePlus 11, I don't think I ever noticed any kind of stutters. It seems to be pretty consistent in its performance. So overall, for performance, I would definitely say the OnePlus 11 definitely beats it out. But I wouldn't say the Pixel 7 Pro is awful. It's just could be better for sure. But for most people, for the basic average people or person, I think you would be just fine with the Pixel 7 Pro. As far as software, both of them are running Android 13, but the Pixel 7 Pro is using the Pixel launcher versus the OnePlus 11 is using Oxygen OS 13. So it's a different taste kind of. So if you prefer a simpler experience with some pretty cool AI features, then the Pixel launcher is going to be the way to go. And then if you prefer some stock settings to customize and some random features that you likely will get on the Pixel launcher, then you'll probably want to go with the OnePlus 11. So feature packed or customization packed versus simpler and AI packed. It's kind of the way to compare them, honestly, overall. But look-wise, I think both of them take a little bit of each other. Well, actually, not really. More like the Oxygen OS takes a little bit from Pixel launcher. So Pixel launcher is like just padded all around, in my opinion. So you got like some thick borders or some thick colors, thick widgets, thick icons, thick elements, whatever, to really showcase the Material You feature, which both of them do have. But on the Pixel 7 Pro, it's a bigger deal, in my opinion, or tries to be a bigger deal, where everything really does, take a little bit of the colors from your wallpaper to really match it with the elements within the software. Versus the Oxygen OS, it does have, the Material You feature, but it doesn't, shove it in your face, in my opinion. It's kind of just there as like a Android 13 thing, versus on the Pixel launcher, it's more of a, this is it. This is the big thing here. So that's just the one thing I wanted to note there. But besides that, going into some other stuff, on the lock screen, both of them have limited customization here. On the Pixel 7 Pro, you do have the ability to choose between a single line or a double line for the clock style. That only really takes effect when you have no notifications on your lock screen, because you'll have a huge clock within 2 lines when you have that setting turned on. Versus the OnePlus 11, you can only really change the animation of your fingerprint sensor, which I think is pretty cool. You have a couple options you can choose from. But besides that, the notifications, the way they show up, on both of them, they have like a padded look to them. Again, this is stock in Pixel Launcher because it's all padded and everything. But what I do like is that even though sometimes there are pretty thick notifications, it'll start to show a banner at the bottom with other icons of other notifications. So once your screen is filled of all of the up-to-date notifications, the older ones will start to pile up in this little banner with all the icons. So with a quick glance, you can see all your notifications. Versus on the OnePlus 11, I complained about this in the last video compared to the Samsung. It'll only show those first few, the most recent notifications you just got. And if you don't look at your phone for a while and a bunch of notifications come through and you just glance at your device and don't like swipe down to see all of your notifications, then you'll only see the first 3 and think, oh, I only have 3 notifications, and then I don't really care about those, so I won't interact with my phone right now. So you might miss some older notifications if they just keep piling on top of each other and they keep hiding away. Now it does try to do a decent job of showing you your more important ones. So like messages and stuff like that will appear at the top versus your silent notifications will appear at the bottom. So if you miss those, it's not a huge deal, but that's still something I'm gonna complain about. And one thing too with the notifications I forgot to mention is with the biometrics is that both of them can keep your notifications details locked until it recognizes your face, then it'll show you the details of that notification. Another thing that's different is the album covers when you're listening to media. So for example, if you listen to music on Spotify, on the Pixel launcher, the whole media player is using the whole album cover, versus on the OnePlus 11, it's just showing you that album cover and then the rest is just a regular color. And also is the limitation as to the bottom widgets that you can choose. So both of them only allow you to choose either the device home controls, your Google Assistant, or your wallet on the Pixel launcher. And then you do have the option for the camera on the OnePlus 11, but besides that, those are the only two options. Both of them also have the option of quick tapping or double tapping the power button to go into the cameras. So that's just something I want to note there. And then lastly, both of them also have a always on display, but a little bit more customizable on the Oxygen OS. Versus the Pixel launcher that just has your clock style and then your icons for your notifications. There's no customization when it comes to choosing like color, maybe even a picture or stuff like that. It's just one standard, always on display on the Pixel launcher. And in the home screen, the Pixel 7 Pro does have a few limitations. When it comes to two widgets, that being the at a glance widget and then the search bar, they're not negotiable. So basically they're there. You can't remove them, you can't move them. They're there. If you use them, great. If you don't, then you're kind of stuck with them. I think I personally do use them. The at a glance widget can be, annoying or misleading, making you think that there's this empty space to the right of it. But sometimes it'll change throughout the day based on if you have like a count or something is scheduled in your calendar, the weather, or an alarm or something like that. So it might end up stretching across that whole top area. And then the search bar, I use it to search for stuff, but I do like that the OnePlus 11 will have a search bar on the Google Discover page. So with my Oxygen OS setup, I don't actually have a search bar anywhere on my home screen pages. I just swipe over to the Google Discover page when I want to look something up on Google. But besides that, both of them do allow you to pretty much freely move your apps anywhere. Now you do have a bigger grid option available on the OnePlus 11, up to a 5x6, versus on the Pixel 7 Pro, it is only up to a 5x5. So if you want that extra bottom row or top row, whatever, it is available on the OnePlus 11. You also have the option to enlarge your folders on the OnePlus 11. So basically you can take your folder, enlarge it, and you can still interact with each app within that folder. So you don't have to actually open the folder. You just interact straight with it. So you can kind of add like a grid inside a grid, which is pretty cool. So you can add a ton of apps without taking up too much space on your pages on the OnePlus 11. You also have the option of customizing your icons and transitions on Oxygen OS. So your icons, you can kind of tweak a little bit as far as how you want the shapes to look and maybe even change the whole style. But you can also remove the labels, which I personally like. So I like keeping just the icon there. Kind of can get confusing sometimes when you don't know what the icon is to an app. So you might just click on an icon that you didn't mean to, or you might not be able to find your app or whatever. But I still think it looks pretty clean without the name. But the transition is pretty cool too, so you can choose from a couple of different options to spice it up a little bit, I guess. And the Pixel launcher allows you to rotate your home screen, so if you have to prop up your device or want to use it horizontally, you can. Versus on the OnePlus 11, I couldn't find a setting that allows me to do that, and sometimes it's annoying when you're using an app that's in horizontal mode, then you swipe home, and then your home screen's on portrait mode, and you're looking at your phone sideways, something like that. Forgot to mention that in the Samsung video, because it can sometimes be annoying on the OnePlus 11. And I talk about the notifications, the quick settings section. I already talked about the look. It's a little bit more padded on the Pixel launcher versus the OnePlus 11. It can be padded as well for the notifications, and then the quick settings has got this like simpler look to it, but the way you interact with notifications is a bit different. So on the Pixel launcher, swiping left, swiping right will clear the notification. Holding down will open up this little menu so that you can mute your notifications from that app. And then if you open up a group, the way it works is that if you have a group of notifications, if you click on it, it'll just go straight into the app. And then it won't actually clear that group of notifications. It'll leave it there. And I kind of like it because if you didn't mean to click straight to go into the app and you meant to open the group, you can go back, open the group, and then select a specific notification. Versus on Oxygen OS, if you swipe right, going to the right, it will clear the notification. If you swipe to the left, it'll open up this little mini menu. So you can either swipe again to clear it, or click the trash can to clear it, or click that little settings option to open up the little mini menu to mute notifications. I kind of find it a little bit inconvenient that it has to open up that mini menu. I don't understand why it doesn't just clear both ways, but it is what it is. And then for the grouping of notifications, what it does is that when you click on a group, it'll open up the all the notifications, and then you select which specific notification you want to go into. It's just a habit thing. You'll get used to it once you actually start to use it, but I prefer the way it works on the Pixel Launcher in my opinion. And as far as the quick settings, I kind of have gripes with both of them. So for the Pixel Launcher, not a huge fan of the way it looks, of the padded look, but it is what it is. But I specifically don't like that the brightness slider is all the way to the top, and also I'm not sure why it doesn't have a toggle for auto brightness. I have a habit of like sometimes increasing the brightness, but then I want to bring it down. So instead of trying to figure out where I should bring it down to, I'll quickly toggle the auto brightness and toggle it back off and then toggle it back on to bring it down automatically. I do that all the time on all my devices, and the Pixel Launcher does not have that auto toggle, and it's just a little bit annoying. And it's also annoying that it's all the way to the top, so if you're using your phone with one hand, it's a little bit ergonomic to try, or non-ergonomic to try and get it all the way to the top, at least your finger. Versus the OnePlus 11, it's just got a simpler look to it, and the brightness slider is towards the bottom, but I don't like that it leaves this little section empty. Like, you could bring all those toggles down, that brightness slider down a little bit more, but instead you leave that whole area empty. Now on Oxygen OS, it does play in the top right, versus the Pixel Launcher, the bottom part is empty for that very reason. It does show that media player there specifically. And another gripe is the way sometimes these toggles work. So some toggles will react with a little menu popping up. So when you hold, or actually when you click them, most of them should just toggle on and off, right? But some of them will open up a little mini menu. On the Pixel Launcher, I think it's only the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth that might do it. No, I think it's just Wi-Fi actually. On the Oxygen OS, it's the Wi-Fi, the Bluetooth, the media player. It opens up a little mini menu, and then you have to click more or something like that to get into the actual settings. It's like a quick settings for the quick settings of the settings. It's just pointless in my opinion. And then also when you're holding down a toggle, some toggles on both of them sometimes I notice, I think more on the OnePlus 11, I don't know. Some toggles will, if you hold them down, will open up, the settings of the actual, of that section in the settings app. And some of them will react like it's just clicking the toggle, so it'll just toggle the toggle on or off. And then some of them will go into that little mini menu or whatever it is. So it's a bit confusing sometimes, and it just throws me off at times. And it's one of the things that you just get used to once you're actually using the device. I will give props to OnePlus for allowing you to kind of customize the quick settings a little bit. It's just the shapes. You can change the shapes that you want to use. And you can also change the status bar a little bit. So a couple icons you can change and remove some icons from showing up on the status bar. Some small neat things. And then moving on to the app drawer, both of them are very boring and very limited. It's literally just an app drawer. I mean, it fits the name, it's just an app drawer. All your apps within this drawer that you scroll up and down to find. The only thing you can really do on the OnePlus is just sort them differently if you wanted to, but besides that, there's nothing else you can really do. It's just all your apps there if you wanted to access your apps. Personally, I wish you could create folders or something like that just so that you can organize it a little bit, but that's just a small pet peeve from One UI that I'm used to. And real quick, I want to talk about multitasking. I'm a big multitasker when it comes to my devices. They're powerful devices that can definitely handle it, and they're big displays, so you can definitely do it on these displays. So there's a couple ways you can multitask. There's split screen mode, there's a floating window mode, and then there's like picture in picture. Picture in picture is the most simpler one to do, which basically with like a media watching app, so like YouTube or YouTube TV or some other apps will allow it where you can watch the video and then just browse another app at the same time. And then there's split screen mode, which is the option of literally splitting your screen into two apps. So one app at the top, one app at the bottom. You can like adjust the width of each app depending on what you're doing. Usually I'll do that with YouTube as well, but just allows me to have YouTube at the top half and then another app at the bottom without the picture-in-picture covering up something up on the app. And both of them limit you to just the apps that the app developers have developed to go into these multi-window modes. The way you start multitasking though is way better on the OnePlus 11. Although I'm not a huge fan of it, it's not perfect, but it's still better than the Pixel Launcher method. So with the Pixel Launcher, to start multitasking, in split screen mode, you have to go into your recent opened apps and then click the top icon and then select split screen or split the top or something like that. And then you have to choose another app from the recent apps. If you swipe to go home to select an app from your home screen or your app drawer, it cancels out the split screen mode. I don't even use split screen mode on the Pixel Launcher because of that very reason. Versus the OnePlus 11, it does allow you to use this thing called an edge bar. It's its own little feature, which basically stores some apps in this little mini app drawer, which allows you to access the full app drawer. But basically, you'll drag and you'll drop the app you want to use in split screen mode. It'll place it at the very top, hidden kind of, and then you just select an app from either your home screen or your app drawer, and then you're going to start multitasking. It's a little bit weird for me, but still way better experience and more intuitive, I guess, versus the way that the Pixel Launcher does it. And both of them also allow you to use window mode. So basically you can open up like a little window, like if it was a computer, and then move that window around and still access the app. So I kind of use it sometimes for a calculator. On the Pixel Launcher, it's like a hidden developer mode feature. It's awful. It's so glitchy. No wonder they hid it away. It's definitely not well optimized with Android itself, I guess. I'm not sure how they haven't perfected it yet. OnePlus has done it. Samsung has done it. I'm sure other OSs have done it. How is it not good on the Pixel Launcher? It's just awful. When you move it around, it just glitches like crazy. I would never use it. So yeah, for multitasking, I just wouldn't really do it on the Pixel Launcher. On the OnePlus 11, it's definitely a bit of a better experience. As far as additional features, both of them have the different modes, such as work mode and bedtime mode, so you can like change the settings, block apps, do whatever you want in the specific modes. It'll be triggered with like a specific time you set. Both of them have the Google Assistant. Both of them have the whole Google ecosystem and Android ecosystem. So these should work just fine with pretty much everything that you have, unless it's like, of course, Apple and stuff like that. And then both of them have Material U. I already talked about how that's like the big thing with the Pixel Launcher, but I wanted to note that on the OnePlus 11, you do have the ability to pick specific colors from your wallpaper. So if you're not a fan of the colors that I guess the Pixel Launcher chooses for you, you can select the specific colors you want on the OnePlus 11, which is pretty cool. A unique feature that OnePlus 11 has is the private safe, which basically allows you to store files, images, and I think music in this little safe that's hidden with your biometrics or protected by your biometrics. And then you have a bunch of other small things that you can change, small different features such as like auto resolution and the HDR enhance and image enhancer and all that kind of stuff for your display. So there's a bunch of small things you can tweak and mess with on Oxygen OS. Versus the Pixel Launcher, I mentioned the AI features is the big major thing that it's got going for it when it comes to the Pixel Launcher. Simplicity plus AI features, I think it's pretty cool. It's a neat package here, but basically with the AI features, the Google Assistant, you have the ability to, I think it's called live translation or something like that, where it'll translate what's on your device, on your home screen, or on your page, essentially whatever text is on there. If it's not in your language, it can translate it to your native language and allow you to read what you're seeing. And then you also have the speech-to-text dictation stuff with the Google Assistant, which just improves the accuracy and speedness, I guess, of your voice-to-text. Personally, I don't really use it, but it's there if you want to use it. And lastly, you have the calling/phone features, which basically you can have the Google Assistant answer the phone for you. You can have it hold the line for you. It can answer spam calls for you without you even noticing. It's a pretty useful feature, so it can control. The best part is the fact that it can control spams. So if you don't want to talk to spam callers anymore, just turn that feature on and the Google Assistant will just scare them away, which is pretty cool. But overall, as far as software updates and software support, both of them are guaranteed 5 years of security updates, and on the OnePlus it is guaranteed 4 years of major OS updates. I'm not entirely sure what major OS updates it's guaranteed on Pixel Launcher, but at least you're guaranteed 5 years of OS updates since they released. So you still got a lot of support left on both of these devices. As far as the consistency though, the Pixel Launcher is at least one update a month. Sometimes it's like 2, depending on how bad the bugs get, because it can be kind of buggy on the Pixel sometimes. Versus on the OnePlus 11, it seems to be so far once a month. I got an update in late February, early March. So we'll see if it's consistent every month, or it might be every other month like it was on the OnePlus 10 Pro. But either way, just wanted to mention that. As far as the cameras, I'm not a huge camera expert. I just rely on the AI and software and the hardware to work together to give me a good shot or a good video. And you know, for the most part, they do a decent job, but there's definitely some pretty big comparisons or differences here. So first, on the Pixel 7 Pro, you do have a 12 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide and a 50 megapixel f1.85 wide, then a 48 megapixel f3.5 telephoto, and on the front you'll have a 10.8 megapixel f2.2 wide. And on the OnePlus 11, you will have a 48 megapixel f2.2 ultra wide with a 50 megapixel f1.8 wide, and then a 32 megapixel f2.0 telephoto. And then on the front, it's a 16 megapixel f2.45 wide. So when it comes to the front cameras, as far as the photos, the Pixel's color tuning is just so much better. So first off, the colors of the environment and my skin look much better compared to the OnePlus 11. It just tends to look way too warm as far as the temperature on the OnePlus 11 versus on the Pixel launcher, it just looks a little bit more natural. So my skin color looks a little bit more truer to what my skin color actually is. And then the OnePlus 11 also has an issue with overexposing. So in areas where there might be too much brightness and stuff like that, it just overexposes a lot. But overall, both of them do have a good amount of detail, and both of them also have a fixed focus, so you can't like put something in front of the camera and expect it to focus on it. And then both of them also struggle a good bit when in low light situations, but overall, I'd say I prefer the Pixel look over the OnePlus when it comes to photos. Now, as far as videos, the Pixel does shoot a max of 4K versus only 1080p on the OnePlus. So overall, right away, you can see the Pixel just has way better quality. But besides that, both of them do struggle a little bit in low light situations, so it does get a bit noisy. And then same as the photos, the Pixel's colors tuning is just a bit better when it comes to looking more natural, especially when the skin colors versus the OnePlus 11. Just looks a little bit too unreal, whether it be looking a little bit too warm or just not adding enough color. And just, yeah, overall, I'd say the Pixel does a better job when it comes to video on the front. Even though it may not be the best out there, it's definitely better than the OnePlus. Now, as far as the back cameras, when it comes to photos, it's definitely going to come down to your own personal taste. But from what I saw, the Pixel tends to be on the more natural side of colors with just a little bit of added boost in the colors when you're using the ultra wide and the wide. And then when you switch to the telephoto, the colors do shift a little bit. So on the Pixel, it does tend to go to the more cooler temperature. So it's a little bit on the bluer side. On the OnePlus, on the other hand, it's more consistent when it comes to the colors from the ultra wide to the telephoto, but typically it does tend to be more on the vivid side. So greens do look a little bit greener and blue, just a little bit bluer, and red just a little bit more redder. But overall though, as far as the detail, it's pretty good on both of them. And then both of them have an ultra wide that does have autofocus. So that does allow you to do like a little macro like shot. And then as far as the max capabilities of zooming for the telephoto, the OnePlus is capped at 10x zoom versus the Pixel launcher that can reach a 30x zoom. Both of them do an okay job. The OnePlus, because it does digital at 20x, suffers the most versus the Pixel launcher that has a 5x optical. It's definitely a bit better when it comes to that quality when zooming in. As far as video, I shoot both on 4K. The OnePlus 11 can shoot up to a max of 8K, but overall, as far as the video quality, I think both of them do look pretty good and well detailed, and for the most part about the same stabilization. But when it comes to the color, the Pixel just overall does look a little bit more vivid and more colorful, versus the OnePlus tends to lack a little bit of color, almost leaning towards natural and kind of washed out and bright in its colors and look overall. I don't know if it's just me, but it just doesn't look as pretty or as clean as the Pixel. The OnePlus actually doesn't use the telephoto in 4K either, so when you start to zoom in, anything from 1x to 10x, which is its max zoom, will all be digital zoom. Versus the Pixel just crushes it when it comes to the zooming, because not only can it use a 5x telephoto and optical, but then it can zoom up to 20x and it just looks way better from 10x to 20x, or just from 5x, or actually from 1x all the way to 10x, and then definitely to 20x. It just looks way better. So overall, I would definitely say that the Pixel camera is way better compared to the OnePlus 11. Not to mention, it's definitely the better optimized for social media apps as well. As far as the battery life, both of them do have a 5,000 mAh battery, but because the OnePlus 11 does have the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2, the more efficient chip and less heat demanding or less hot chip, it's definitely going to perform better in battery life compared to the Pixel 7 Pro. So on the Pixel 7 Pro, I would say, depending on my day, sometimes it varies and what I'm doing, I'll get anywhere from like 12 hours, sometimes I would say up to 16 hours, so a whole actual days of usage with like maybe 3 to 5 hours of screen on time, versus the OnePlus 11 will get me anywhere from 16 hours of usage to about 24 hours of usage, with a total of like maybe 4 to 7 or 8 hours of screen on time. So yeah, I think the battery life experience is going to be way better on the OnePlus 11. If you're a heavy user, you're definitely going to prefer it better on the OnePlus 11. If you're a basic user, not doing too much on your phone, then you will survive with these Pixel 7 Pro, but there is a chance you'll have to charge right before you go to bed on the Pixel 7 Pro, versus on the OnePlus 11, you'll likely survive the whole day. And if you do have to charge, then on the Pixel 7 Pro, it takes anywhere from like an hour and like 10-15 minutes up to an hour and 30 minutes, versus the OnePlus 11 has that 80-watt Super VOOC charging that is included in the box, by the way, that it'll take just about under 30 minutes, I'm pretty sure. So it is extremely fast when it comes to charging, and it lasts longer. That's a big win in my opinion though. The only thing that the Pixel 7 Pro has over the OnePlus 11 when it comes to battery and charging is that it has wireless charging. So if it's a must-have convenient thing for you, then I guess you have no choice. but yeah, besides that, battery life is just way better on the OnePlus 11. So at the end of the day, which one should you go out and get? I think it really depends on what you prefer, but for me, I personally have a clear winner for myself. So with the Pixel 7 Pro, you will be getting great cameras, good hardware, good performance, mid software, I'm just not a fan of some of the things, and then mid battery life. Versus the OnePlus 11, you will be getting great hardware, great performance, great battery life, mid software, and then mid cameras. So for me, I personally would pick the OnePlus 11. What's good about the OnePlus 11 is what's more important to me in a smartphone, versus the Pixel 7 Pro. Some of the key things that are more important to me are just lacking on the Pixel 7 Pro. Unless you really must have the best camera out there, or one of the best cameras out there, then it's pretty tough to say no to the Pixel 7 Pro. But the camera, while I may not use it all the time, I do want a decent camera, and I think I'll be okay with the OnePlus 11 camera. So for me, I personally would pick the OnePlus 11. For the pricing, you're only paying like an extra 50 bucks, or maybe even saving 50 bucks if you go with the OnePlus 11. So that's the route I would go, but that's up to you to decide. So hopefully this helped. Hopefully you guys enjoyed. And peace.